Over the next few days, extreme record-breaking heat will continue to build in the desert southwest, while a surge of cold Arctic air moves into the northeast. Colorado stays in the middle of an extreme weather sandwich. A chain reaction from a phenomenon known as the polar vortex is to blame. The polar vortex is a large area of low pressure centered around the North Pole. Contained in that vortex is some of the coldest air on Earth. When the vortex is strong, that air stays put. But if the vortex weakens, it allows high pressure to build in, which pushes the Arctic air to the south. To the west, you'll usually find relatively warm weather. Colorado rarely takes a direct hit from the polar vortex because of where that high pressure sets up. In northwestern Canada, that sends a lobe of the polar vortex tracking down across the Great Lakes, keeping us in the middle of extreme cold and warm. Meteorologist Corey Reppenhagen, 9 News.